In the studio, we're joined by Timandra Harkness, the author of Big Data, Does Size Matter? And David Graeber, the anthropologist and author of Bullshit Jobs, to discuss this a little bit further. Does it seem to you, David, that's where these are heading? Are these bullshit jobs, or are these brilliant inventions that will allow us all to be joy adjutants?
Well, it's going to head that way if we don't do something about it. If you think about it, this has been going on for a long time. 100 years ago, most of the jobs that existed then have been eliminated, have been automated away. And instead of simply working half the time, which we could have done, we seem to have collectively decided it would be a better idea to make up jobs that most of the people doing them feel are doing nothing at all. I mean, the polls have shown that 37% of people in this country feel if their job didn't exist, it would simply make no difference whatsoever. Or maybe the world would be actually a slightly better place.
But could you, Timandra, could you actually ask people to just work a 15-hour week and be happy with the rest of the time? It's just not, it's not in human nature, is it?
I think it depends on what your job is, to be honest. And I've actually had this conversation with, for example, a taxi driver saying, but surely you would miss working if a robot took your job and you had a self-driving car. And he went, no, I'd love to have all that time off. But then he did say, but I guess I would need some other way of interacting with people. I would need some kind of social interaction. But I doubt that we as a society would get to the point where we'd go, okay, that's enough of everything. We're happy with the world. We're just going to work half the time, because we think we're happy with something and then we want more. We want new stuff.
Well, that's because we're trained to do so. If you look at history, I mean, the average medieval serf worked about half the amount of time that the average office worker does.
Is that right?
Yeah, over time, we've actually worked more and more and more. And it's not because we're driven by insatiable desires. They have to shoot 60,000 ads at us a day to keep us wanting stuff.
It's very interesting, this question of whether it's about input or output. Now, we were talking about the legal profession. That lawyers may have to upend their whole model of how they charge clients, because if you have robots who can read 100,000 words in 2 seconds, then you can't charge for the slog anymore, right?
Well, I think that's quite a useful example, because whereas, you know, like our grandparents, I mean, my kind of great uncles were dockers and used to move heavy things out of the hulls of ships, and that's been taken over by machines. And now it is people like lawyers that the grunt of their jobs is going to be done by machines. And so they will have to say, okay, I'm not going to charge for that. I'm going to charge for my experience and wisdom. But then the other question there is, but how are they going to get to that if they don't have to sit there as apprentices ploughing through lots of old legal cases? If they've got a robot to do that, how are you going to learn your craft by going through the routine work?
Where does the apprenticeship come from? Where do you get better at things?
Well, you don't have to do it in the workplace. I mean, people want to learn things, people want to know things, people want to do things. We have the assumption that we have to do that in the form of paid employment. Well, why? Why don't we just give everybody enough money to go live on and see what they come up with? Because people will come up with extraordinary things. People will teach each other if you give them the means and the time to organize themselves.
Are you saying it's actually cheaper for society to pay people not to work than it is to pay people to work?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look at this country. We used to produce every 4 or 5 years another amazing musical trend that would sweep the world. Why was that? Well, it's because there were so many people on the dole. As soon as they got rid of that, music dried up, because all the kids who would otherwise be sitting around teaching each other how to play guitars.
But, well, maybe they were inspired by their political fervour to write songs about the fact they were on the dole.
Well, maybe they were, but they also had time to do it.
I disagree about this. I think that the idea that you just pay everybody to not have a job is you're basically accepting that half the world will be on welfare. Well, who is deciding who gets money and how much? Who has the power in this situation?
Everybody gets the same thing. That's what I would say.
But who decides that? It's the
Who
thing.
decides everyone gets the same
If you've got
thing?
the rich people who own the robots, if you like, saying, oh, well, out of the goodness of our hearts, we will give everyone money to keep things running smoothly, isn't that a terrible relegation of most of the population to just being recipients of charity?
No, I'm saying we divide livelihood from work. We say everyone automatically gets livelihood. You're alive, you're a human being, you deserve to live, and it's up to you to decide what you want to contribute to the world. Imagine what a philosophical change that would be. Yeah.
Talking about philosophical changes, when we had on the job titles, I mean, we all laughed, you know, oh, an algorithm bias monitor.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that 50 years ago they laughed at the idea of a management consultancy. Or
Well, they still do.
Okay, but do you think these will become part of the fabric of, you know, somebody who actually checks an algorithm for bias is probably doing an absolutely critical role in the day of, you know, fakery.
Yeah, I think that is a job that we really need. We need, if the more things are run by algorithms, the more we need humans there to say, well, actually, if you look at how this algorithm works, it's discriminating against all these people, and you may not have intended it to do that, but that's what it's doing.
So people just correct the robots then?
Yeah, there will be a lot of jobs checking on the robots. I mean, the robots won't really replace us. There'll have to be someone monitoring what's going on. It will just be working less, which is fine.
Yeah, I think I can quite see robots taking over the boring, routine parts of the jobs, but we need humans there to decide what jobs are they doing and why, and for whose benefit.
And the other thing I think we really need to think about is not what kind of jobs robots can do, but what kind of jobs we'd want robots to do and which kind we wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, someone once pointed out to me that tube workers, you know, most of what they do is finding lost children or talking down drunks. It's very human, caring labor in a sense. And I mean, even if they could build a robot that could do that, would you really want that done by a robot?
We're going to end on that thought, but thank you both very much. Thanks for coming in.